books are about a woman, a 40-something woman who's a freelance journalist, and her mother who is in assisted living. And she's kind of based on my mother, who has passed on, but she was in assisted living for a while. And Lizzie is the mother, and Robin's the daughter. And Lizzie has a little dementia, but not real bad. Mostly at night and things like that. But she, so it's kind of echoing some of the stuff I went through with my mom, some of Lizzie's lines and my mother's lines. And Robin just finds herself involved in things like in the first book, her mother got ripped off by a bad investment deal. And so Robin kidnaps the goat that was the companion goat to his racehorse and holds it for ransom. So, so they're kind of lighter books. They're not. And in the new one, which Tyrus published the first two, and then they didn't publish the third one, but it was done, and I thought, why not? And so this is the first time I've self-published, but it came out looking like, I think a friend did the cover he's a children's book illustrator, but obviously he didn't draw this, he designed it, but he did a really nice job. But this is about Robin's mother, Lizzie, has taken a lover in assisted living, and named Lionel, and he somehow is connected to a painting that went missing during World War II. And when I started writing it, I was going to do somebody stealing Indian artifacts, Native American artifacts from a site, and it just wasn't clicking. And I thought, well, what about a painting? And I have a favorite artist whose painting I visit every time I go to the Art Institute. It's Franz Marc. He was an expressionist, died during World War I. And I thought, I wonder if any of his are still missing. And lo and behold, yes, one. And I have a picture of stealing Mary Oliver's book. She wrote a poem about it. It's called Tower of Blue Horses. And it's like 4 by 6 feet, and it was possibly last seen on in the hunting lodge of Hermann Goering. And it didn't, and someone supposedly saw it in Berlin after the war, but it's not a positive sign, so who knows. So I used that, and it's in Illinois. I'm just telling you. That's where I went with the plot, and Robin has just moved into a new house, and she's dealing with her weird neighbors and the marijuana she finds under a floorboard. So a lot of this whole thing comes together at the end, and in one final confrontation. So, and while I was writing the book, they discovered all those paintings in Munich. And I said, oh no.
You've ruined my book.
Ruined my book, yeah. But this was not one of the ones. It was interesting. They were from a lot of the paintings from the Degenerate art exhibit that Hitler had, which was mostly expressionist, what's the Art Institute? Impressionist, thank you. Art, and a few of Mark's paintings were in that exhibit, but because he died in the First World War, they said, well, we can't do this to a hero, so they removed all his paintings from the exhibit. And like I said, and as degenerate as they were, they somehow wound up on the walls of various Nazis.
My latest book just came out. It's called Blood Trails, and it's about a detective starts out in 28 years, in 1987. And two detectives are tracking this guy. He's a serial killer, and they end up shooting him, and they apprehend him, and he's paralyzed from the wound, and he cuts a deal with the state to reveal where some of his other victims are buried in exchange for not being given the death penalty. At that time, they still gave him punishment. So then it fast forward to the present day, and he's getting, they swore he'd never get out on parole, now he's out on parole, and so the detective is still working, under the lovely pair, who's written a book about it. And he appears on a Chicago news show, and he's pushing his book, and it turns out that the FBI approaches him and says there's another series of murders that are occurring, and they're mirroring the crime scenes of these earlier serial killers coming murder scenes. And so they want to question him about that. They have a task force investigating that, and he's involved in the new murders. There's a little bit dash of Michael Crichton in there because I have a few elements in there that are quite not really sci-fi, but a little bit borderline. So it's
Speculative fiction.
I was figuring by the time the book came out, it would be reality. So, but it hasn't quite made it that way. But the last execution I wrote was about missile intercept before this one came out. Was about North Korea threatening the U.S. with interposed ICBM. So I had to come up with that about 3 years ago, and then so you kind of got to stay ahead of the wave a little bit on some of this stuff.
A strange little man in North Korea read that book.
Actually, when I was writing that one, the editor contacted me and said, "Okay, you can't mention him by name. You can't mention Kim Jong Un by name. You have to, mention he's, the head of the government there, but you can't mention his name." They had all these different restrictions. So anyway, I couldn't mention Kim Jong Un by name, so I found out he was called the Grand Marshal. He doesn't. Originally, his grandfather, I think, was called Apogee, which is father in Korean. It was called Apogee. That's right. So then his son, who took over after first Kim Il. They were all similar names. Like Kim Il Sung, whatever his name was. He died, and his son took over, and that guy was called something else. And the current one was called the Grand Marshal. So he was like basketball and